the monsters, alive, surging up from the depths of the sea on a tidal wave of terror to wreak vengeance on mankind.
Godzilla, king of the monsters. It's alive.
A gigantic beast
Stalking the earth, crushing all before it.
in a cyclonic cavalcade of electrifying horror.
Raging through the streets on a rampage of total destruction.
Godzilla, king of the monsters.
Incredible titan of
This
terror.
shark, swallow you whole.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
That's a 20-footer.
25. 3 tons on him.
Hold it up, he's coming straight for us. Don't screw it up now. Don't wait for me. Now! Shoot!
People love to talk about movies. Good movies, bad movies, old ones, new ones. Even people who never watch movies like to talk about movies. So that's what we're going to do here today. I'm Margaret McGurk. Let's talk about movies. With us today is Krista Katona-Pille, who is a movie and theater professional of decades of experience, a little bit of acting in there too, and an avid moviegoer and a fan, as is her whole family.
Yes.
So, and today we're talking about monster movies, which are. Everybody has favorite monster movies.
Oh, absolutely. What is your favorite?
I'm a big fan of the original Frankenstein.
Ah, the Boris Karloff.
Yeah, the old Boris Karloff Frankenstein. Now, this is a perfect example of that story was written in, the 1800s by an 18-year-old girl.
It is amazing.
Yes, and it is so vivid. It lives on today. It keeps getting remade, sometimes based on very much on the original book, but lots of variations.
I think there's a film coming out based upon her life and her writing of the book.
Oh,
which
that's
I
going to
think
be
will be very interesting.
Mary Shelley was a very interesting writer. She was a very interesting person. But there's a deep psychological attachment to this creature who is made and then is rejected and is heartbroken. The thing that was not considered really, the error of the maker was in not assuming that this creature was going to be fully human, and it was. And of course, there are myths going back to Gollum and, older than that, about humans making living things out of inanimate objects, and
that whole God complex.
The God complex, exactly. And there's usually has a moral to the story, which is be careful what you ask for.
Don't do it.
Not to get all deep and psychological, but psychologists will tell you that the monsters are projections of things that we see in ourselves and fear in ourselves and fear in other people, and so that's why they're so complicated and so endlessly fascinating.
It's true.
But we have Draculas, we have vampires right up to this day. We have the mummy keeps coming up from time to time.
That is true too. You can't keep a good mummy down.
You can't keep a good mummy down. We have werewolves, who are right up there with the vampires. Very ancient kinds of myths that still resonate with modern people today.
Oh, absolutely.
Why? What is that? What's going on there?
I think they are fascinating stories, and I do think we see ourselves in them, like you said. I think that exploring your own fear helps you deal with day-to-day issues. I think there's just something to that makes life more interesting.
Yes. Well, and I think we feel a little bit of a monster in ourselves, especially when you're like a teenager.
Oh, for sure.
You're going through when you're figuring out who you are. Every kid, I think, at times thinks there's something just wrong with me.
I do not fit in. It's true.
I am not a member of this species.
No, Teen Wolf.
Exactly. It's like, these are not my real parents. I came from another planet. Something.
It's true.
So I think that's a big part of the appeal.
When you watch movies like Frankenstein and such, at least when I watch them, I get really emotional. I can't explain what that is and why when he goes to visit that little girl or the blind man, and that is something that just touches my soul, and I feel that way also about the Jeff Goldblum remake of The Fly from '86.
Yes. Oh.
I cry every time I see the end of that film. It really gets to me, and I think it's that wanting to find out who you are and that whole rejection process. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I'm glad to know it's not just me. If you do it too.
It is absolutely not just you. I mean, otherwise these movies would not come back again and again and again if they didn't have a deep emotional resonance. So besides The Fly and the Frankenstein, let's talk about some other monsters that you like in the movies.
Oh gosh, I think that one of the films that scared me most, especially as a child, was The Invisible Man. The Claude Rains original Invisible Man. And when he was wearing those bandages with the sunglasses, really, even to see that visual to this day really frightens me. And then when he takes them off and you can't see him and you don't know what's happening and where he is, it freaks me out.
That is really interesting.
It really is a scary, scary movie. I'm surprised. I think Kevin Bacon, there was a remake with him, Hollow Man, that was done in the probably mid to late 90s. But they haven't explored Invisible Man as far as I can remember as of late.
No. And that's a hard story to tell. Because you can't see the person.
Right, it's true. It doesn't make for a great visual opportunity.
Yeah. It's like, what is he? Is he wearing invisible underwear?
Right,
is he like
scary.
invisibly naked, or what's going on?
It's true.
It's true, especially with modern audiences.
Oh my gosh.
I think you have a hard time presenting it.
Yes.
Well, I think that the evolution of the monsters says a lot about us, about the society that we live in, the way that we relate to the world.
Yes.
And what scares us. When we have, the alien, for example.
Oh, from Aliens and Alien.
Absolutely,
yes.
Yeah. Absolutely the scariest monster ever created as far
ever.
as...
And you can't stop it.
No.
There's nothing you can do.
Unstoppable. Yes. And I think that series kind of made kind of ran off the rails when it tried to make it sympathetic. Like, it's just a mom.
I know, no.
I could relate.
I can't relate, and I am a mom. No.
Yeah, no. But, I mean, really, one of the great, and truly an alien. There was nothing remotely human about it.
Very machine-like.
Yes.
That H.R. Geiger design was truly one of the best.
Absolutely. Well, we have a lot more to talk about.
Yes.
We'll be right back.
It's amazing. I love that movie so much. I love Ripley.
Everything would have come right if you'd only left me alone. You've driven me near madness with your peering through the keyholes and gaping through the curtains. And now you'll suffer for it. You're crazy to know who I am, aren't you? All right, I'll show you. There's a souvenir for you. And one for you. I'll show you who I am and what I am.
So, we're talking about monsters today with Krista Katona-Pille. And the monsters inside all of us. But, the original monster movies were all based on classic stories, old myths. And then, as the movies got more sophisticated, it was into the 50s, it was after the war, there were atomic bomb had been dropped, and the monsters started to change. We had a lot of monsters that were the product of atomic bombs. There were big giant ants and big giant crickets and big giant animals. The spiders, the spiders would come. There was the 50-foot woman, and there was the invisible shrinking man, and that was the incredible shrinking man.
Oh my gosh, truly.
Very poetic screenplay. If you'd listen to the way that it talks about being and nothingness and all this kind of stuff,
So
it's
deep.
Really, it is very deep. There was also the movie-making technology. We were talking about The Blob.
Yes.
Which was a big hit. Now, this is a monster that was a garbage bag full of Jell-O. That was it. And they just sort of rolled it around. And people were afraid of it.
Absolutely.
Because they didn't know where it came from.
No. I read it was originally designed as a B movie, like the second movie for the drive-in. And people loved it, and so much that they flipped it And then when it became this enormous hit.
There you go, see? And then the Tingler was kind of the same way. When that came out, that was one that there were certain theaters where they supposedly had the Tingler experience, where you get a little electronic buzz in your chair.
I bet that was terrifying.
I'm sure it was. That was a huge hit. Of course, the country was crawling with teenagers, too, at the time.
Yes.
Teenagers are the perfect audience for monster movies.
It's true. Everybody wants to cuddle together and be
That's
afraid.
Right. There's nothing better than being, so terrified you have to jump into your boyfriend's arms.
Yes, so true.
It was wonderful, but the range of stuff that got made was amazing. The Japanese movies started showing up. Now, what do you think about Godzilla, or Gojira, as the purists would have it?
That is true. There's so many different Godzilla movies. I think that as far as the new ones that have been made, I don't feel like any of them have really hit on what they originally did.
Yes.
I think that stands alone, the ones that they made. I know they keep trying and trying and trying. None of them ever have resonated with me, personally.
Yes.
I don't know how you feel.
Well, no, I know what you mean. The first ones were scarier. They were very low budget, obviously.
Very, and that's okay.
The effects are like, okay, I can see what's going on there.
It's a giant man in a little city.
But it had content. And as our director pointed out, the very original Gojira was the result not of the atomic bomb, but of firebombing, where people were just dying in horrible ways. So it was a response to a trauma, which was the atomic bomb was sort of a trauma for the whole world.
Absolutely.
And I think there was a lot of that in the, and still is to an extent, but especially in that era, in the middle of the 20th century, lots of, oh my God, what have we done kind of
That's true.
monsters.
And I think you see that in some ways today with all of the outbreak movies, all the virus movies. Everyone's turning into a zombie because there's some kind of virus. It's what we're afraid of at the time.
Yeah, some kind of invisible threat that we can't see and we can't control.
Yes.
And we can't avoid.
No.
Well, King Kong. Now, this is one of the early. I'm sort of going backwards here in time. It is. It's a great movie because you're afraid of this big giant gorilla, but by the end of the movie, your heart goes out to him. He just wants love like everybody else.
Yes, it's true. Just leave him alone.
Exactly.
The '76 version was actually the first movie I ever saw in the theater.
Oh, really?
Yes, which people look at the '76 version with disdain because it was so '70s, the oil crisis, everything that was going on. But oh my gosh, Jessica Lange, that was her debut. And she was so beautiful. And it was just kind of, for me, seeing that with my father, that was just a seminal moment in my life. And I remember I think I was 6 years old, and just crying in the movie because I couldn't grasp the idea that you have this character, and even though, he was a villain, he's going to die at the end. Sorry, spoiler.
Spoiler alert.
Yes.
Yeah, you wanted him to live.
It's true.
It's you become invested in King Kong.
And it was not his fault.
It's not his fault. See, this is another strain of monster movies, which are the monsters that we create directly by interfering with nature. Jurassic Park is a good example of that.
Absolutely.
They're based on animals that really existed, not in our experience, but let's fool with Mother Nature and see what happens, and you're gonna get bit. That's always,
of course,
always the moral of these stories.
It's true.
There's Jaws. Now Jaws. If it wasn't so much where we interfered with the life of the shark.
We're in their territory.
We took over their territory.
Yes.
We don't understand them, and we don't know what they're all about, and very scary. Or the new versions of Jaws.
Yes.
The most recent one is the Meg, and it's we go someplace we shouldn't have gone, and we interfered with Mother Nature, and look what happens. It's
always bad.
It's all
Will we ever learn?
We no, because they have to have 3 or 4 more
That's
sequels.
True. That's true.
Like Sharknado. Oh. What did we learn from the first Sharknado?
Nothing. No. Not to watch it, I think. Truly.
But there's always more. There's always a new monster.
Yes.
There's always somebody. It is interesting to see how the technology and the changing world tracks the monsters. Like computer monsters. The computer becomes a monster.
Yes.
War games.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Yes. And again, the loss of control.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We, another one of those, oh my God, what have we done stories. Like, ew, here, we thought we were just playing games. We just
That's right.
built something to help make things safer, and
Unleashed.
we're all going to die.
That's right.
It's very scary. I mean, we're kind of afraid of ourselves. It all comes back to we're afraid of ourselves and what we do and what's inside of us and what might come out.
And so we're going to put it up on screen so we can deal with it.
That's right. Yeah, much easier to deal with the screen monsters than
the real life monsters.
All right, well, this has been fun, and we still have more to talk about. We have their modern monsters every day, new ones, and we will be right back. We're talking about monsters with Krista Katona-Pille.
Not a monster.
Not a monster. As far from monsterhood as you can get, here in this one. You mentioned that one thing we haven't talked about is the strain of human monsters that are completely just horror stories.
Yes.
Freddy. The Leatherface.
Oh, from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Oh, so scary.
Jason.
Yes, Hockey Mask.
Yes. Jason.
Michael Myers, who's making a comeback this October. They're putting out a new Halloween, which I'm intrigued by because they're picking up, I believe, after the original, or maybe it's after the first sequel. And Jamie Lee Curtis is coming back again.
Oh,
and I know
God.
she did another Halloween movie, but I think they're erasing that history and starting from back in the day.
That's really interesting. I mean, the original Halloween is one of the all-time great horror movies.
Yes.
It really is, because they don't try to drag you around by the nose too much.
No.
They let you get scared exactly the way you'd be scared in real life, which is by what you don't see.
That's true. And seeing it through his eyes.
Yes.
And he can always walk and catch up with you. Why is that?
Yes. No matter how fast you run.
It's true. He will catch up.
And he will catch up. Yeah. It's unrelenting.
No.
And she was tremendous in that.
She really was.
It was a revelation. I love that movie. The sequels. I'll tell you what my beef is with the movies like these, where you have the human bad guy, is that they just become mechanical. You know exactly what's going to happen. They always, foreshadow they always have the eek, eek, eek movie. It's like, okay, we're going to walk past the door. Someone's going to jump out with a knife in their hand. It's all very, just a series of cattle prods, basically. It's like, jump out of your seat, even though you know exactly what's going on.
True.
It's like, that's not really scary.
Although I always found that Freddy Krueger was a little bit different than the other three, just because of the whole nightmare aspect, and that he could be anything and do anything.
Right.
And that you couldn't fall asleep, that whole idea that you were really trapped because you can't live without sleeping.
Right.
And you can't sleep without dying.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that's interesting.
Yes, that's right. That's a great premise. And, of course, it taps into, without saying so, the deep psychology of dreams.
Yes.
That they don't really come from outside. Nobody invades your dreams.
No.
They all come from inside you.
That is true. That is so true.
So that's it. Yeah, you're right. Freddy Krueger is one of the great monsters of all time.
And in terms of remakes, I felt like, and I can't remember what year it was, it might have been in the early 2000s, the Texas Chainsaw remake with Jessica Biel was truly frightening. That was a really scary movie.
Yeah.
And I'm not a huge fan of sort of the torture porn, Saw. I'm not a huge fan of those.
No.
But that I felt was done appropriately.
Yeah.
If that that sounds right. There was something about that. And seeing the original film, that is a messed up film. I mean,
Yes,
that is some psychological, wow. And there was something written that a lot of that film has to do with the Vietnam War, which I still haven't seen all of those parallels, but that is an interesting take on
Well, it certainly was at a time when that was a big trauma that people were grappling with.
Absolutely.
So, you know, who knows how your response to trauma is going to be. It's, you know, the modern, the new modern monsters, some of them, I mean, we keep harkening back to the classics.
Oh, absolutely.
Vampires never go away.
Nope.
Only, you know, as we were talking earlier, now they're cute and sexy.
They're sparkling.
They're sparkling. Everybody wants to sleep with them.
It's true.
And, you know, the romance vampires is a queer, horrible, weird idea.
I don't know. There's something about that. I don't know. The whole interview with the vampire.
I mean, I understand where it comes from. Yeah, right. The blood drinking is a pretty, you know, it's a pretty clear analogy.
I'm not into
that. No, I don't want that. But, and of course, they tend to cast all these handsome people in it.
They do.
But Only Lovers Left Alive, did you happen to see?
I have not seen that. Tell me more about that.
It's just really good. It's about a pair of vampires who they're actually, you know, trying to be good. They're trying to live a normal life, kind of. I mean, in their own context.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how to explain it, but it's really worth seeing.
I need to catch
It's
that.
a wonderful. I mean, Tom Hiddleston.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah, he alone is like a reason to see it.
For real.
But you know, we know that the vampires are apparently never going to go away.
No.
The zombies are everywhere. Everywhere.
Why do you think that is?
This is, I don't know for sure.
Your theory.
My theory. What is the modern trauma that makes us, it's not even like there's one trauma, but I think it's that there's a sense that people don't know where they are anymore. They don't know their own world.
Yeah.
This sense that your next door neighbors or your family or anybody could turn on you, kind of. That danger is just sort of running through the fabric of the whole community.
Yeah.
And it's an exaggerated fear, but it affects the way people act, and I think that's kind of what the zombie is about.
That's interesting. They did that really well. Again, it was a remake, but the Dawn of the Dead remake, when they end up in the shopping mall, but then it starts out in a neighborhood. That was great and really scary, and does speak to your point, definitely.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I mean, we just, you know, it keeps coming back one way or another. It's very bizarre.
Yeah.
I have seen there have been a couple of weird little movies that tried to make the zombies like romantic heroes.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, no, I'm sorry. That you missed the whole point of the zombie. It's
Zombieland, great comedy.
That was
with
a very
zombies.
good. Yes, that was a good, funny zombie movie. But the zombies are not going to be cuddly and lovable no matter what. You know.
You just
otherwise, then they're just vampires.
That's true. That is true.
There's the outer space monsters. These are always interesting. Of course, Alien set the standard for that. Nobody is ever going to beat that one, I don't think.
Even they're not. Because I feel like with the new, they're giving us some backstory. I don't necessarily know I want to know that backstory because it may not be the backstory that I've sort of created for myself. And there's something to be said about just starting from where that film starts from.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that was, I mean, it was so well done. It was so classic. It's, you know.
Oh, it's just, in space, no one can hear you scream.
Exactly.
I mean, oh my gosh.
Well, and then there's also the Terminator is a great monster. And here's something that the Terminator and Alien have in common. In both, they feature a woman who really fights for her life.
Yes.
And up until that point, it was very common that for women in these extreme danger situations to just sort of scream and bury their face in their hands.
Damsel in distress.
They're just, you know, to cower, you know, in their underwear, run around and scream in their underpants until the monster gets them. That was kind of it. You know, that was all they did. So to have two female characters who survive the whole movie because they are willing to do what they have to do to stay alive is is, it's part of what gives them, such power as movies. Part of the reason they were massively popular. One of the surprises to the people who made The Terminator and to the studio that put it out was the number of women who went to see that movie.
Oh, interesting.
They were that's a big part of the reason it was such a big hit, because so many females went to see it.
Oh, wow.
And they were not ready for that.
Do you think that's one of the reasons at the end of at least Alien, Sigourney Weaver as Ripley was in her underwear when she had to, that very vulnerable, and sort of turning that on its head and saying, you've seen this before, but not like this.
Yeah.
She is a strong woman.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That is a very good point, because she was absolutely at her most vulnerable.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
She's my spirit animal.
She's
I
wonderful.
love Ripley.
Yeah, she's absolutely a great character.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting something. Mechanical monsters, computer monsters. What am I
Like
forgetting?
Hal.
Hal. Well, we've talked about
Hal before.
Yeah, before. The robots that turn into monsters.
Yes.
That's kind of a different thing. Although they fit into the same pattern of being something that we make.
Absolutely.
And it turns on us.
Yes. I think it's great in some respects that the universal monsters are sticking around for this next generation, because I have a 10-year-old who now knows all of them thanks to Hotel Transylvania.
Oh.
So, I highly recommend 1, and 2 is not bad. 3 is not my favorite movie ever. But he knows all of these monsters because of them bringing them back in
animated, safe form.
In a safe form, but still they're true to their monster roots.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Fun.
See, it's never going to end.
Ever.
The monsters come from within us, and we can never trust ourselves.
No.
We are just, humans are scary.
That's right. Monsters at heart.
We're monsters over, and we love it.
It's true.
Thank you very much. And we'll see you again, talking about movies.
That was fun.
Halloween night. A small American town. 15 years ago.
Michael?
Halloween.
I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up, because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.